Welcome back to the Dare to Dream podcast. This is episode number 86, and my name is Gregory Russell Benedict.
And I'm Vincent Van Patten.
And the Dare to Dream podcast is about discovering what is possible when you have the courage to follow your dreams. It's a podcast for millennials who crave meaning and fulfillment and are willing to step into the unknown to find it. Through guests and our own experiences, we give listeners, you guys, alternatives to the stories you've been told about what work and life should look like.
Beautiful. So that is what this show is about. We've been trying to distill kind of what we want, the message of the show to be, who we want to appeal to. And that really is the best that we got at this moment. And I think it's pretty damn good. I'm excited about it because it is about finding meaning and fulfillment. And it's not just about, living an adventurous life or an interesting life, or it's about finding meaning in your own life. And that comes through doing challenging things, getting out of your comfort zone, and doing some hard work, which does bring fulfillment as well. So I think we're on to something, Champo.
I think we're onto something, and I love that we are iterating and bringing the audience along for the ride. Like, we want you guys to be here with us. We want you to give us feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the topic of today, my friend, what are we talking about?
Oh man, am I excited about this. We are talking about a lot of things, but the jumping off point is going to be the Chris Williamson, Joe Rogan podcast. And
Yes.
you guys have heard us talk about Chris Williamson a lot. He's the host of the Modern Wisdom podcast, one of our favorite podcasts. And he just recently went on Joe Rogan, which is huge. That's really the pinnacle of podcasting, is to go on the Joe Rogan experience. That's kind of what everyone is aiming at the beginning of their podcast journey.
Right. And it was really cool to hear them both saying towards the end that, like, if you were to go back to the first episodes, they're complete crap. Like, they didn't know where they were heading when they started this thing, but they just took that first step to embark on the journey of being podcasters just because it was fun in the beginning. Like, Joe Rogan was known for smoking weed and just drinking with his guests and having a good time. And that's what people wanted. And I love what they were saying about, well, first of all, just leaving those first episodes up just to see like how far they've come and just to see, how things have changed. Sometimes people are afraid to start things, both of us as well, because you want them to be perfect before you find the courage to begin. That's just never how it's going to work. You have to start the thing realizing that you're going to suck at the beginning of whatever it is, before things get better. And that's like the beauty of the imperfection of it. That's the joy of it. That's what makes it fun. And part of the fun is seeing how you progress and actually feeling yourself get better. So I thought that was cool.
So good. And we're just going to be dropping quotes and bits from the podcast throughout this whole episode. And what you just said brings up a point that Chris Williamson always makes, is that perfectionism is procrastination masquerading as quality control. So when you tell yourself, oh, I can't publish the article yet, I can't start the project yet because I'm not ready, it's not ready. That's not perfectionism. That's procrastination and fear, underlying fear that when you put it out there, people are going to judge and comment. And I think it's Seth Godin who says that everything you publish and create should have a rough quality, because if you take the time to take it from 95% to 100% and you really polish it, like, that's too much. You need to just, when you get to 95%, you need to launch, you need to ship the work and just get it out there.
For sure. I just finished my newsletter moments before starting this podcast, and I woke up like with a couple of different ideas of what I want to write about. And I went with this one from, I think, Chris Williamson's 450K episode of The Good Shit Sticks, that, the things that we learn, what's important. Like, if you, consume a lot of information, a lot of books and podcasts and everything, the good stuff, the important stuff will filter through. And, like, just personally, I don't, remember all the books that I've read. I don't remember just all the facts and everything, but I remember how they moved me and how they changed me while I was reading those things. And that's kind of a different topic, but the point of this is I wrote the whole newsletter this morning, pretty much a story. And my criteria was like, keep it under 500 words or around that. And just try to make this point, as clear as possible. Like with this morning, I have a time limit. Like I'm going to do it this morning, start to finish. Usually I give myself like 2 or 3 days to write an article, but it's good sometimes to like be like, I got 2 hours and I got to get this idea across. I want to send it to you because I'm like, I don't know if this really makes sense or if like the idea is cohesive, but, and it kind of like what I started with turned into a different idea. So I thought, and it still kind of revolves around this whole idea of like the good shit sticks, but it turned into follow what genuinely interests you. And I use the example of Leonardo da Vinci because that is a book, the biography by Walter Isaacson, that one of my favorite books. And I don't remember all the facts, but I remember that Leonardo da Vinci was just a fastidiously curious person. And I remember how he would sketch the woodpecker's tongue, or he would go around Florence just sketching people in conversation just to capture what their faces looked like when they changed and when they were animated, so he could understand the human body and use that in his art. And so like what I said is, if I could distill the life of Da Vinci down to one thing, it's just remain fastidiously curious and let that curiosity carry you throughout your life. And so the idea of like my newsletter, it kind of just morphed into something new of follow your curiosity. Don't get too caught up on like remembering things. And, it's not school anymore where you have to remember facts, pass a test. Follow your curiosity. And if that's the road you're kind of supposed to go down, the good stuff you will retain. Like you will get positive feedback. You'll change through that pursuit of following your curiosity. And then down the line, like who I am today couldn't have happened without being changed while I was reading the book of Da Vinci, even though I don't really remember the facts.
Yeah. It's funny that you bring up the woodpecker tongue because that's what stuck with me too. There's certain things that you hear that resonate on a deep level that you won't forget. No matter how hard you try and forget it, they stick with you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the formulas and the facts and statistics, but it's certain things, and really paying attention to why those things stick with you is important. It's usually something that aligns. Like for us, I think we remember that because it's unusual and we love curiosity. I think we
Right.
both hold that as a high value. And another thing that you mentioned, or that I want to bring up from what you mentioned, is having a time limit on creative endeavors is so powerful. I've
Yeah.
been doing that recently where just because I've been busy, I don't have enough time to, I have enough time, but I have a time boundary on what I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to work on. And last week was probably, sorry, this week, wow, it's still the same week, was the tightest time boundary I've ever had. I wrote an essay for my coaching class in 11 minutes.
Wow.
And it's not
How,
good.
how'd
It's
you do
not
that?
good. It's passing. It's not a work of art,
It's
but
just your
just,
it's your thoughts just out there. Right? Yeah.
yeah, just sometimes having a time boundary is when I do my best writing. And this was not my best writing, let me clarify, but it's really interesting what can come out when you have that boundary.
What it gets me to do, what it comes up is that when I know like I have just this morning, I can't sit for 20 minutes just look at the blank page. Like I have to just start by just getting all your thoughts, spew it out, just vomit whatever's in your head. And then what it also does is it makes you cut more than you like write. So if I have like 800 words, I'm like, okay, I just got to start cutting things, and it becomes clearer as you take more away. This is just tips for, if you want to get a thought across, if you want to explore ideas for yourself, give yourself 20 minutes and an idea and write on it. See what happens.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many different ways I want to take this. I think what I want to go to next is just this deep, deep gratitude I'm feeling that we are on this adventure. We're on this adventure together, and we're doing all of the things. Like, I think that's one of the coolest parts of this journey is that we're doing all of the things that the people we look up to say we should be doing in our 20s.
Dude,
And
it fires me up so much. But continue.
yeah, and like I'm not saying that braggadocious way, like we have it figured out, because we definitely don't. Like you and I spend more time floundering in the existential soup
And
than,
each spend more time in each other's arms with tears rolling down our face than should be allowed.
but it's this exploration, and it's just doing the things that are going to help you become the person you're meant to be. And there's this quote I came across this week. I got to look over here because it's on my whiteboard. It's by Seneca, and it says, "Where you arrive does not matter so much as what sort of person you are when you arrive there."
Mm,
And that just absolutely knocks my socks off, because it's all about the person you're becoming. It's not about the final destination and the corner office and the Ferrari and the big house. If you get there and you're a shitty person, then you failed, at least in my opinion.
mhm.
If you get there or don't get there and you're kind and loving and compassionate and people want to be around you, that is it, in my opinion.
Even just saying, yeah, I tried at this and it doesn't matter if I failed at whatever the pursuit is. Yeah, it's who you are becoming through it. And that's why it was really interesting. This episode's kind of, it's kind of leaning towards curiosity, I think. It's some serendipitous reason. It's all coming together. But as long as like something you might be interested in and you commit yourself to it, it doesn't even matter what the end result is, or even if you really get there. It's the fact that you commit yourself to something that might genuinely interest you. You will change through that process of going through with it. And what is like really exciting for me and you is we're committing to things for the long game. It's not like, Jordan Peterson, choose what is meaningful over what is expedient. Just a hallmark of his philosophy and what I really aspired to, base my life on. And like through writing, through the pursuits that we're engaging with, podcasting, we are becoming the people that we hope to be. Not even if we're successful because of it, but because, and like what you said the other day, really hit me hard, that I was kind of just talking about writing on Medium. Like, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I'm like really getting that much out of it. Like, I'm not blowing up, or like I'm not making much money. And I really don't know if that's gonna be like my, my primary, I definitely don't think it's gonna be my primary income source, but like I don't even know if it's gonna be my main stage, and it's kind of always has been for writing. And you just like, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter. We're just telling our story like through Medium and through all the articles that we publish. And that was just eye-opening and just such a great way to look at it. Like it's literally to look back and have like documentation of the times where we were struggling and wrote about it, the times we're about to embark on the next chapter. It's just we're telling our story. And that's the coolest thing ever, realizing that committing to something for the long game, there's not going to be overnight success, but that is just not the point.
Yes. And something that Chris Williamson said in this podcast that really stuck with me, really resonated with me on a personal level, is he said that he always presumed the thing he was doing would be the thing he did forever. And every job I've ever had, every project I've ever launched, I always think that that's the thing I'm going to be doing forever. And older, wiser people in my life, like my parents, have been like, dude, just chill out. Like, you're not going to be doing this forever. And yet,
Yeah.
my first job as an internal auditor, I thought it was going to be the thing I did forever. And that's what made me so miserable
Good
and sad.
God.
And then after that, like working in finance, I thought that was it. And then the nonprofit, I thought that was it. And now I feels like coaching is it, but I know I'm going to be doing other stuff as well. And I
Hmm.
think that knowing that the thing you're doing now isn't the thing you're going to be doing forever is extremely freeing, because it gives you hope and freedom to do other things in the future. But it's also a reason to start something. And like you
Hmm.
said, it doesn't even matter if it's the right thing. Like, just start one thing and commit to it and see what happens. And that's where the magic is. That's where all of the unexpected things come up. That's where you're introduced to the people who you're supposed to meet.
Hmm.
And you learn so much about yourself. Being able to understand how you think and your own opinions about stuff, like, this isn't really taught in school. You learn that through having conversations with other people, through trying things and failing, or trying things and succeeding, there's this whole school of life that's out there for people who are willing to engage. And I'm giving you credit for this. You say you're a student of life. And I love that label, because whatever happens to you, wherever you go in life, you're just constantly learning and benefiting from the experience.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate that. Yes. I think part of being a student of life is assuming the role of the fool, like knowing that you're always going to be, there's going to be things that you don't know. And this kind of goes back to my newsletter. Like we're not here to pass a test anymore. We're here to actually understand why we're here. I think like that's the most interesting aspect of being alive, is what are we really doing here? I think curiosity is kind of the avenue to explore that. So like what you're saying, it doesn't have to be forever. That's a freeing way to live, because you could actually follow your curiosity into something and be like, I might change in 10 years or 5 years or 6 months, but at least I'm gonna give this a shot now. And I love when Joe Rogan said that when you commit to something just to see what happens, it's a vehicle to unlock your human potential. So if you say, I'm going to write a newsletter every week for the next 6 months, it doesn't even matter if, well, I guess it does matter if you do it. If you show yourself and prove to yourself that you can do it, then you've just proven to yourself that you are reliable, that you could actually get something done, stay consistent. And that's where you learn from it. And you take that into other avenues of life.
Proving to yourself that you're someone who does what you say you're going to do is so important. I think it's really easy to break promises to other people if you're not a man or woman of your word, but it's even easier to break promises to yourself, right? You tell yourself that you're going to go work out tomorrow morning, and then you wake up and you're tired and you're like, I don't really need to do that. And if you become someone who does what they say they're going to do, especially with yourself, you build this trust. And I think that's where self-esteem and confidence come from, is knowing that you're able to do the things you say you're going to do, and having this feeling of competence and this feeling that you're going to be okay. And what this brings up for me is Joe Rogan was talking about why he seeks discomfort, why he does hard things. And he's like, I put myself through so much bullshit on my own, like all of this hard stuff, that everything else in my life, my job, the stress, what people say to me, like none of it phases me, because I put myself through harder stuff every single day, whether that's cold exposure, really hard workouts, doing strange psychedelic adventures.
Yeah.
It's so freeing and powerful to voluntarily seek discomfort, to put yourself through it before anyone else does, because then whatever they're going to bring to the table, you're like, this isn't that bad. This isn't as bad as what I did earlier.
For sure. I wrote that down, that like you have to do difficult things. And they were talking about, it's pretty much what our show is about. It's how to even understand what path you want to take in life, what avenue to go down to find meaning. And it is through doing hard stuff that actually matters to you, that creates a meaningful life. But you just don't know what you are capable of until you put yourself in that arena. And obviously, doesn't have to be, you have to turn into a gladiator. Like, we're very comfortable, but in this world of comfort, there are intellectual pursuits you could take. I mean, I'd say that's the hard stuff that I've done so far, writing the book, getting my master's, things that just prove to myself that I could stick to something, get it done. And that just opens up the door for the next thing. And so if you don't know which way to turn, what direction to go in, try doing something hard, proving it to yourself. And I thought of men in discomfort, men and women of discomfort. Just that's the whole premise of the company that you are affiliated with.
What comes up for me in doing hard things is that I feel like we need to define what hard is. Like for you, and correct me if I'm wrong, the hardest part about writing the book was probably consistency, and then putting yourself out there, actually being like, look, world, here's a book I wrote. Come on in and read it. It probably wasn't the like intellectual struggle of putting sentences together because you're really good at that. Like that's something that comes naturally for you. The hard part was those other things. And so when we say do something hard,
Mhm.
I feel like, at least in my own life, hard usually means uncomfortable in the thing that I know I should do, but I don't want to because it's so much easier to just not do it. Like not stand up and give a toast, not stand up and give a speech when you know it's going to be really meaningful.
Mm,
It's not necessarily like, oh my gosh, like I need to go lift a really heavy weight or like bang my head against the wall. It's
right.
doing the hard thing is saying yes to the things that you know are going to be advantageous for you in the long run.
For sure. I think, I mean, this brings up, did we talk about what we did? The the Ryan Holiday article, um, why you must live an interesting life. But I mean, if we did talk about it, I'll just reiterate the point.
That was
Like,
our whole last episode.
yeah. Did we bring this up? No, but did we bring up this one? So it says, like, how do you know, what does it even mean to live an interesting life? And that's kind of the same question of like, what does it mean to do hard things? It's like, well, there's the road to comfort and there's the road to discomfort. It's usually the road to discomfort that is the harder thing and the thing that you should probably do to expand. So he says life is always presenting you with opportunities. A road diverges in the woods, and we have a choice. The safe one and the dangerous one, the one that pays well and the one that teaches a lot, the one that people understand and the one they don't, the one that challenges us and the one that doesn't. It's the cumulative result of these choices that leads to a life worth writing about or a life worth being written about. The person who chooses safety, familiarity, the same thing as everyone else, what perspectives will they gain that will allow them to be distinct, unique, or wiser than others? What will the person who never risks hope to ever gain? And I think we know what, the hard thing is. It's if you, like you were saying, with like a toast or something, it's when you start getting butterflies before you do something. That's a good indication of the direction you should go if you
Yeah,
want to challenge yourself.
absolutely. And I love the clarity we got yesterday on who the podcast is for millennials seeking meaning and fulfillment, and huge and are willing to step into the unknown to find it. That's like
Mhm.
the essence, is that in order for an extraordinary life, in order for meaning and fulfillment, at least in my own experience, it's always required dipping a toe into the abyss and seeing how the water is. It's, at least in my own experience, I've never had something just fall into my lap that's like perfectly aligned with what I want to do and be super meaningful until I put myself in the unknown and started pursuing what I truly wanted and being my authentic self. I was just on a call with someone yesterday, and she was saying how it's crazy that she she went on this like live coaching demo. I'm in a coaching program and there's like thousands of people from all over the world in it. And she went on and like did a live coaching demo and actually got coached on something she was struggling with. She was super vulnerable. And afterwards, she had all these people reaching out to her, just being like, thank you so much. I resonate with what you shared. Like, let's stay connected. I would love to meet you. And she was almost surprised that the more she revealed her true nature, the more people connected. But it's like, duh, like
Yeah.
you're going to attract the people that are perfectly right for you when you are being yourself. If you're wearing a mask, you're going to attract people who like the mask. And then you're questioning like, oh, why don't people like me for myself? They only like me for the mask. It's because that's what you're putting out into the world and that's what you're attracting.
Mhm. Yeah, I heard recently, best explanation or definition of authenticity, buzzword, is what you think, what you say, and what you do are all in alignment.
What you think, what you say, and what you do are all in alignment.
Mhm.
I like that.
Pretty good. It's pretty good. So, how do we get to that point? It's a lot of times it will be, I mean, confronting your own struggles and vulnerabilities and challenges. That is, it's like it's just like a inner wall, inner battle that we all face and come up against. Like, you don't want to admit things to yourself because that's the truth hurts. Like for me, I mean, of course, like, yeah, but those are the like that kind of wake up calls that we need. And that's when you do start sharing that stuff, we're all going through the same in one capacity or another, same struggles. And when you do share and the more vulnerable you are, Chris Williamson says, like, if you actually want to be, you know, a creative and you want to make it, I guess, as a creative person who puts their like voice out into the world, just be as vulnerable as you possibly be. Like, share as much as you can. Be 100% who you are, and you will find like-minded people. That's what you want.
He says that your uniqueness is your ultimate competitive advantage. And that's really the only way to succeed in this hyper saturated internet marketplace.
Mhm.
You can't try and be someone else. If you try and be someone else, he's like, I could try and be Joe Rogan, but I'd be at the very best case scenario, I'd be the second best Joe Rogan.
Right.
Whereas if you're yourself and you combine, I think he said like your DNA and your genetics and your weird lisp and how one foot is bigger than the other, it's this recipe that is uniquely you, and that is your competitive advantage. That's the only thing you can have that is in economics, it's called like your economic moat. It's the like barrier you have that protects you against competitors.
Mm. That's all you got. At the end
That's
of
all
the
you
day,
got.
that is all you got. So how do you hone in on that and use it to challenge yourself and pursue what's actually interesting? How are you going to use what you got and discover what that is? Maybe that is through doing difficult things, at least trying something and seeing where it goes.
And being willing to look at yourself, pick up the stones and look underneath and be like, ooh, that's a little scary.
Yeah.
And just really get to know yourself and introspect. And in the midst of all of that, not do too much of it and go too far and get in your own head. That's been something I've been grappling with recently, is overthinking things. And
Mhm.
the antidote I've found for that is just like, okay, like I have this feeling and it's not that great, whatever. Like, let me just move on. Like, I don't have to sit there for hours and analyze how I'm feeling. I can just be like, yeah, I'm feeling kind of weird right now. Like, let me just go for a walk and I'll probably feel better. And
For
it's not
sure.
getting so deep into the analysis. Like, it's a balance. And the real antidote is just zooming out and being like, who cares? Like, taking yourself less seriously. That's what
100%.
really works for me.
Yeah, I wrote about that this week. Just like, I still get into my low moods from time to time. Like, as a kid, I would pout, kind of get my way, and it's
Big powder.
big old powder. And I grew up, and I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna pout anymore. Like, what is the point of that? It's in my teens, and but I still have my off days, of course, as we all do. And when you're in those low moods, it seems like the world is just weighing down on you. Like, negative thoughts are so much heavier, and it all like I don't know the last time it was over like 2 days where I've stayed in like a low mood because of something. It's like usually just one and done, one day. And it's not very often, but in the morning, like, things are always better. So like, how do you get to them just like when you have energy again, and I'm usually just tired or overwhelmed? But to get there, yeah, it really is whatever you could do to get out of your own head. Take a walk, read, like, put the problems down on the page so you could actually see them. Like, okay, there's what am I afraid of? And just realizing how insignificant the problem might be in the moment, and how good things really are. It's hard to see that for sure, to zoom out and be like, okay, been through something like this before. The grand scheme of things, it really isn't that bad. So let's just even distract yourself for an afternoon or something. Watch a funny movie, and things will get better.
Watch I Love You, Man, and fall asleep 5 minutes into it like we did recently.
That was me. That was me. Yeah. Oh, it's good. It's so good.
So one of the other places I want to take this within the Chris Williamson, Joe Rogan podcast was the last hour and a half. If you guys are going to listen into it, honestly, you could probably just skip to there.
I'd
That's where you
recommend.
learn a lot about Chris Williamson and his journey. And I loved how he said this one line. He said when he was trying to figure out, like, late 20s, he had achieved all of the things that society had told him that he should want. He was monetarily successful. He was a club promoter, so he was popular. He knew a lot of people. He was modeling, he was getting all the girls. He had achieved that pinnacle of material success, but he still felt super empty on the inside, and was really confused by that because he didn't know what else he should want to want, as he says
Right.
it. And he says, I was thirsty for something and I didn't know what to drink. And it's this, you need to spend the time figuring out what you want to want. Otherwise, you have no direction and you have no way forward, no hope. There's a quote by Aristotle that goes, if a man knows not where he goes, no wind is favorable. So you have to find some sort of thing to focus on, some aim, something to aim at in order for life and the universe and whatever guiding spirit you believe in to help you and put wind in your sails. Because if you don't know where you're going, any wind is probably a headwind.
For sure. And this brings up something pretty interesting. So I looked up that quote. That's just first of all, was Aristotle from the podcast?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think it was a man a
Are
man
you about to correct me? Oh boy.
a man knows not what port if a man knows not what port he sails, no wind is favorable. Seneca. Maybe they both said similar things. Anyways, just want to get that on the table.
Thank you. Thank you. Get that straight.
Yeah. So I was thinking about something, and this all kind of ties together. I just saw like a random Jordan Peterson clip, and he's talking about conscientious people. That wasn't the funny part, but and he's saying if you're a very conscientious person, it's going to be hard to be with somebody who's not like very conscientious, because you're going to be working very hard and you're going to be upset with them that they're not working as hard. And if you're not a very conscientious person, vice versa, it'll be hard to be with somebody who is, because if you want to just relax with them or just enjoy life, it'll be hard for them to slow down. But it could be good because you'll make them relax a little bit more, and I guess they'll make you work a little bit harder, but it might not be the best. Anyways, I was just thinking about that. It kind of feeds into like the meaning and fulfillment thing. Like fulfillment does come from pursuing something meaningful, and we do need something to pursue. Like life can't just be just, butterflies and rainbows. Even if we want it to be, it just couldn't, because when we have something, when it's good all the time, either we look for something to shake it up and to like, kind of rock us, which is kind of why we need difficult things, but we just don't appreciate even the goodness of what we have sometimes without the bad, or just the struggle, or it's the challenge. That's like why it's important to pursue something challenging and worthwhile. But then I was also thinking, I'm like, yes, that is what's going to bring fulfillment. It's, for me, it's writing and pursuing the next goal, another book or whatever. And that's like what gives my life fulfillment. But I was also like, and this is kind of what me and you were talking about the other day. I'm just like, how excited we are to be dads someday. Like, it's at that point, I imagine everything else will kind of just fall away. It's like, wow, this is awesome. Got a kid in many, many years. But I was like, with the whole conscientious thing, it's like, how can you not realize that life isn't just about the pursuit of something? There's got to be, we're here to enjoy being alive too. Like, if just seeing it for me, where it's like, if you want to be with somebody who just wants to relax or enjoy life, conscientious person probably isn't for you. It's like, that's so many people's lives of like just the constant go, go, go without ever stopping to enjoy it. It hit me pretty hard. It's like, wow, there's got to be a balance of like taking your foot off the pedal, truly enjoying this mystery of existence. Like, that's got to be why we're here. And maybe that does feed into finding meaning, connection and family and such. And then fulfillment does come from, the pursuit, but there's got to be some, maybe it doesn't have to be, but I think for me personally, it's got to be both.
This brings up so much for
Yeah,
me.
I pulled from many different webs there.
So
Somehow bring it together.
I'm really curious about this, because what I'm hearing you say is that someone who is very high in conscientiousness isn't going to be happy being in a relationship with someone who is low in conscientiousness, because it's kind of polar opposites. One person is really achievement oriented and striving, and the other person is just more content with not doing less, but conscientiousness is measured by, like, one of the constructs within conscientiousness is industriousness, which is like organization and attention to detail. That's a huge part of conscientiousness. And
Mhm.
like, yeah, just getting things done. So
Right.
what I'm hearing you say is that those might be incompatible partners.
Yeah, I think that's what he was saying. There'll be challenges.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason why I'm digging into this a lot is because I've taken the Big Five personality test. It's sometimes called OCEAN. It stands for openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism. And Jordan Peterson has a really good personality test that is this. You can go to, I think it's called understandmyself.com. It's like $9.99. You can take this personality test. And I am 97th percentile conscientiousness. So you put me in a room with 100 people, and there's only 3 who have a more psychotic attention to detail than I do.
Wow.
And I've struggled with this. Like, it's really a double-edged sword. It's really helpful for getting things done, driving things forward, feeling like achievement is important, but it's really hard for me to take my foot off the gas and to be around people who aren't striving as much. And yet, for the longest time, I was dating people who were very similar to myself, and it was feeling like it always ended up turning into what felt like more of a friendship on my end. And
Mm.
recently I dated a girl who I mean, obviously I didn't ask her to get her personality test,
It's a
surprisingly.
prerequisite. Yeah.
Excuse me, can you take this real quick?
Whatever.
I think she was quite opposite of me, and I actually found that really refreshing, as it kind of helps me take my foot off the gas and realize that there is more to life than striving and achieving. But I think there's a balance. I think it's like opposites attract, and yet to have a meaningful relationship, you have to have similarities and especially hold the same values and morals.
For sure. Yeah, it's obviously case by case, but like what you're saying, he said it actually it could work because the conscientious person will, bring the other person up a bit, like do more maybe, and then the other person will help the conscientious person relax. Um, I have by no means am I gonna like only seek out a certain type of person. I think it's just like, you'll spend time together, and if you're compatible, you'll figure it out pretty soon. But um, yeah, that is really interesting. And I don't exactly know how it feeds into everything else, but I think it's the part of the fulfillment and why it's like it's making a lot of sense. This meaning and fulfillment uh, dynamic is quite interesting and pertains to this podcast, I think, really strongly. Is the fulfillment does come from that challenging thing, and being driven and putting yourself in situations where you will learn about yourself. The challenging thing, the pursuit, is a vehicle for human development and understanding yourself, and we need that.
Yeah. What's coming to mind for me right now is those people who are super into astrology, and they're like, "What's your sign?" And
That's
then
me.
you tell them your sign, and they're like, "Ooh, it's like we can't go on a
Not gonna
date."
work. Yeah,
Or
that's me
on
every
the
time.
on the flip side, you go on a date with them, and then they spend an hour and a half telling you about your sign.
That's the best.
Might be a real experience that happened to me. It wasn't great. So another thing I want to bring forth from the Chris Williamson Joe Rogan podcast is the region beta paradox.
Mm,
And what this is, I won't read you the technical definition because it's confusing, but it's essentially, and a good example of this is, if you want to if you want to go to a restaurant on a Friday night and it's less than a mile, a lot of people will say, I'm just going to walk. But if it's more than a mile, say it's 2 miles, they'll drive. And what's really interesting about this is that it's actually going to take them less time to drive the 2 miles than it is to walk the 1 mile, but will choose to spend more time walking because that feels, I don't know, like the better option. And what this alludes to is that there's a certain level of comfort and complacency where you're in it, but it's not bad enough for you to make a change.
The
So
chasm of comfortable complacency.
yes, thank you. That
Yes.
is it. And so it's like the job you have that's not great. You don't like your boss, you don't like your hours, you're stressed, but it's not that bad. And you keep telling yourself, man, I should just be grateful I have this job. It's really not that bad. When if it were worse, if it was horrendous, you would actually, it would be so bad that you would take action and go get a better job. And so it's this trap you can fall into, the chasm of comfortable complacency, where it would actually almost be better for you as an individual if the situation got a lot worse and triggered you to make a change, to go out and get something different, than if you're just lulled into this, like, it's not that good, but it's not that bad. And I am fascinated by this idea because this is what Michael Easter's book, The Comfort Crisis, is all about.
Right.
As a nation, as a world, but especially in the US, we are so safe and comfortable, and we live in our temperature controlled worlds where we never actually feel challenged. And that's why people do things like run marathons and ultra marathons and take ice baths and spend time in the sauna. We want, it's in our human DNA to overcome things.
Mhm.
And when you're not challenged enough, when you're in that chasm, you have skyrocketing rates of depression, anxiety, loneliness. And I just love this region beta paradox that says it actually might be in your benefit to make things a lot worse so that they can ultimately get better.
Yeah, I mean, it's the old hitting rock bottom situation where it takes a serious, disaster, something for real change to take place. And this just made me think of like friendship and what they were talking about. Doing hard things together just makes bonds so much stronger. And like male friendship is kind of in a big way based around doing things together. And like female friendships a little deeper but tighter in general. This is what they're saying. And male friendships are kind of broader and it's not quite as tight, but I don't know, they're kind of going back and forth on that because like, you have people in combat and just guys who do very hard things together, and that makes them tighter than anything. But yeah, there is obviously a lack of difficult things that we have to do. And if we don't have to do something, we're the only ones who could really make ourselves do it. That made sense. But like we have to choose to pursue difficult things to actually create deep relationships, to go through shit together, to find out who we really are, like what we're here to do. Obviously, yeah, we're in the greatest period of history to be alive in terms of like safety and such, but we are straying away from our who we are as human beings and ancestors of like actually doing challenging things, going out to hunt the mammoth with your brothers. And that's, I don't know where I'm going with that, but that's what, makes the brotherhood tighter and challenging things. I mean, obviously me and you, that's why we're doing this, because we're trying to, not that this is like challenging, but we're trying to truly discover like what we're on this earth to do. And that's making us tighter.
This is the prelude to the mammoth hunt of you and I going out. So two things come up for me. One related to the region beta paradox of making things worse, so much worse so they can get better. A real life example of that in my own life was when I was in my first job as an internal auditor and my life was very sad. And I needed to make things worse for things to get better. So in addition to working full time, I decided to take the CFA. And it's this huge financial test where I was working like 45 to 50 hours a week. And then I was studying 25 to 30 hours a week. So my life got really, really dark and really bad. I had no free time. I was studying all the time by myself in the USF library. It's a sad existence. Everyone thought I died. Literally, I had friends who thought I moved out of San Francisco. And I remember having this mindset And it's really interesting now learning that this is a thing where I was like, okay, my life sucks. Let's see how bad I can make it. Like, let's see how I called it Chad, who I worked with, we called it going monk. Is just like cut everything out. Like just work, study, eat brown rice, save money. And
Man.
it set me up to get a new job and get out of it. But it was like if I would have just stayed where things were bad, but they weren't so bad, I would have said, I can't study for the CFA right now. I have a job. I don't have time. So I had to willingly accept making things a lot worse before they could get better. And this leads into the second point where you said that men especially have relationships around doing things. And actually, I don't think it relates as much to that. I think it relates more to the depth of a friendship that can be forged in doing hard things together.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone who's done like a marathon with someone or just like some really hard physical experience or like a emotionally taxing experience, like you go through like a personal development seminar with someone, like you have this bond and it's this shared suffering you have that you can always look back on and joke about. And Chad is coming to mind with this. It's his wedding next weekend. And I have memories with him that I will never forget of us just being so sad, studying for the CFA, working a job we hated. We would do this thing, like I mentioned, called living poor, where we would just save all of our per diem money that the company would give us, and we would buy rotisserie chickens and brown rice, and that was it. And we would literally meet up in our hotel rooms and be shredding the rotisserie chicken in the hotel room bathroom and like meal prepping for the week, living on like $8 a day. And
Good God, man.
it's hilarious. And I'm never going to forget it because it was like so grueling and dark. And obviously, these are all incredibly first world problems, but it's this doing hard things with other people. That's how you really form a lasting friendship.
Yeah. But
So
I'm
there's
sorry you
that.
went through that. Wow. Yeah. I mean, but I don't think consciously we realize like, okay, I'm at a terrible point and I'm not gonna make a change until like things get much worse. It's usually like by happenstance that things just plummet. I mean, we like to self-sabotage is definitely a real thing, but a lot of us are stuck in that comfort chasm. And unless like something really happens, it's nothing's gonna really change. And I think like part of it is we are afraid to definitely admit that we know things aren't going exactly like half as good as they could be. It's like hard to accept that life is on not a favorable track or we're spending a lot of our time doing things we don't want to do. Like, why is that? Why should that be the case? Like, how can we find a way to actually, get change things and get onto a track that we would truly enjoy? And this makes me think of just they were talking about just earlier in life, like there's always a chance for a redirection to change. I mean, you obviously did it early in life, but the more responsibilities that you acquire, the deeper you go into the trenches of, you're at work, you're in the chasm, you're uh, working hard and you don't really like it, but then your boss offers you a raise, you're going to make 10% more, but you're going to have to work overtime. You're going to have to work sometimes on the weekends. And you think that that's a life upgrade, you're going to be making more money, but for what reasons? Unless you understand what you actually want, your life will be at the whim of circumstances. And yesterday I was on a hike with somebody I met through the show. She listened to the show and she's now an awesome friend. And she like asked, like, where do you see, like, what do you really want from like the future and everything? And I I mean, so many words, like I don't get asked that often. Like I have ideas and I have dreams of like what I truly hope to happen. But to actually like say it was awesome. And it's like, well, gonna be in Japan for the next at least a year. I see PhDs floating out there somewhere in the future down the line. Like I mean, to like get that in Europe would be awesome. 'Cause I love Europe and I can see myself living there.
A PhD in grappling,
A
existential angst.
PhD in existential angst. Yes. I see the podcast blowing up. I see books just showering down on me. And just like laying out the things that I want to do. I could like, you could be so many. Chris Williamson says like you can't be everything you want to be. Um, you could be everything you want to be. What is it? Do you remember what it was?
You can be anything you want. You can't be everything you want.
Exactly. And so you do have to pick something and kind of decide to commit to it and forge a path in that direction. And obviously we all want to do, I mean, it's not obvious whatsoever actually, but some of us have many interests and things you might want to do, but analysis paralysis can set in and you're like, don't do any of it because you either want to make sure things are perfect before you embark, or you just never start because you don't know which direction to go in. So like commit to something and that will open up the door to just like this world, and that's where you'll discover who you are. And yeah, but
I
it's
found
cool.
it.
Just sorry, go ahead.
You done?
I'm done. I'm out. I'm out.
I
Not
found
a
it.
win.
I found it incredibly helpful that the most successful podcaster in the universe, Joe Rogan, said that he hasn't put too much thought throughout his life into what he really wants to do. It's more, he just does what he enjoys. And he doesn't think about how long he's going to be doing it for. He does it until it's no longer fun. And if it continues to be fun, he'll continue to do it, like with the podcast. So that's one side of the coin, which was really refreshing coming from someone who's, the pinnacle of podcasting success.
Mhm.
And we keep saying you need to know what you want to want, which sounds really, I don't like, what does that even mean? But
Right.
what it means is that a lot of times you want the things that you're told will bring you happiness, like money, relationships, prestige. And that's when Chris Williamson was like, okay, I got those things. And then I had to figure out on my own, like, what do I actually want instead of those things? So that's where it's really important to figure out what is actually important to you. Like a random example that just popped into my head is like, I will never own a Rolex in my life. I could be a billionaire and I'm not going to own a Rolex because I don't like watches. Like I don't want, the only thing I want on my wrist is my Whoop strap. And
Whoop, that it is.
so just getting clear on like what it is that you actually care about is super important. Because if you don't, I think if you don't take the time to make that decision, other people will for you, and you'll have
Exactly.
those expectations imposed on you.
Precisely. Yeah, it's 100% like it. Whatever takes the pressure off of you, like everything we're talking about is like feels like a lot of pressure, but whatever. I mean, I think it goes back to just following your curiosity with like a light touch. Like that's gonna take you where you're meant to go more than anything else. But the further you do get in life, the harder it is to change tracks. So think about these things. What do you want to want? For me, what's coming up is I want experience over like stability. Like that's what I'm seeking at this point in my life. Like I
Yep.
want the experience of living in Japan, living in another country. I want the experience. I want like worldly experience where I could actually like understand myself through getting out there and learning about different people and the world and living in different cultures to kind of just broaden my horizons. That's what I want because I realize as I'm saying it that that's going to give me stable ground to stand on and to write about as I progress further. And obviously, the older I get, more responsibilities will come and things we want will definitely change. But it doesn't have to be what we're told we should want to want.
Beautiful. And that's where I was really excited when we came up with that the podcast is about sharing alternatives to the stories that we've been told. Like there is other options besides accountant, doctor, lawyer. There's incredibly complex and exciting and strange professions that you can do. And you can be a mix of all these different things. You don't have to fit into one box.
You be a pet psychiatrist if you want.
Yes, that's what I'm aiming at.
That's my highest goal. Yeah, bud. I think that's gonna do it for me.
I think it's time to land the plane here.
Let's land.
Is there anything else? Any other great ideas from other people that you would like to
Yeah,
share,
you really
or
don't have to
yourself?
listen to the Joe Rogan. We just covered the whole thing.
We got it all.
Um, no, not that I could think of. I just say like the opportunities that are coming up just through this podcast. Like, I mean, it also brought up yesterday this hike of like it was the evening. It was just beautiful. I've never been on this hike, and in the Los Angeles hills, and I was thinking of that Jordan Peterson conscientiousness thing. I was, and it like just filled me with such happiness after the or after the, I was driving home, just like, wow, just to like have that experience with like a stranger, not really stranger, like we, been talking, but meeting for the first time and just like learn about somebody new, to be just taking it slow, where in nature, it just felt like so good to be out there. Air was cool. And like that just made me really like, I was just really happy. And like that's the joy, that's what's possible. That is the joy that can be attained from like slowing down and just appreciating the simple things. So that is all being said, just in gratitude of what this podcast has brought us, of like embarking on this journey and meeting people out of nowhere, that it's just like so serendipitous that these things are just coming together, and you just don't know what will happen when you just take that step, take that step and just see where the hell it goes. It'll blow your mind, and there'll be beautiful moments that you won't see coming.
And we want everyone listening to this to be on the journey with us, in the trenches with us, figuring out what they want to do, helping us continue to refine and improve the podcast. Like, it really is a group effort here. And we're just so grateful for you continuing to tune in, listen to us, lather on about life.
For sure. We want this to be a community, and I think we're just getting started with that. So it's gonna be strong, and we love you all.
We'll see you next time.